It's only 58 pounds. Hey, it's Joel Walsman, CEO and Master Electrician of Jefferson Electric. Today we've got the installation of an EcoFlow Smart Panel 2. Whether you are a consumer looking to take your first step into renewable energies and DIY it yourself, or a service provider looking for an opportunity to enter that market and serve your customers, this could be for you, because in one day, start to finish, we'll have a photovoltaic system generating power connected to the Smart Panel 2 with a battery system, step by step for you. I'm at Scott's house. This is Scott. You might recognize him from Everyday Home Repairs and Everyday Solar. Check the links in the description, and we're gonna work on it together.
Let's do it, man. I'm excited about it. Actually, both of us are kind of just seeing this for the first time. It's coming out early 2024. So this is even like a beta test unit. It's kind of a prototype unit before the mass production. But it has some really cool features. I've been kind of nerding out on solar a little bit lately, putting out a little bit more videos and just learning myself, trying to take it all in. And this Smart Panel 2, which is kind of a smart sub panel, has some really cool features to get you started, lower that barrier of entry in terms of cost. Usually you want to leverage a pro, I'd say for sure, in your area to get this installed. But after that, you're really open to start bringing some solar power in, offsetting some of your monthly bills. Pretty compelling.
It is, and there's a modular aspect to the energy storage. So as you come across a couple grand here and there, you can expand your system to your appetite and your needs.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Let's take this panel cover off, identify our circuits, landscape, how we're gonna lay out the wall here, and rock it out. Before we jump into the installation, let me introduce you to the product. So the EcoFlow Smart Panel 2 is, in fact, outdoor rated. That means it's rain tight. NEMA 3R is what the code calls that. That's beautiful. However, batteries are typically used indoors for climatization. So the battery port's down below, and this battery compartment needs to be located indoors. It is removable and easily separable with a few wiring connections from the Smart Panel 2. The Smart Panel 2 has the capacity for 4 power inputs. That's right. Often in solar, it's only 3. This is 4. So we've got the grid, top left. Everything is clearly marked. That's one thing I love about this panel. You don't have to refer back to the spec sheets. It's extremely user-friendly. Second, we have the generator input with a knockout and a mechanical interlock to transfer from grid to generator. Third, photovoltaic. That's the technical term for solar electric energy. Fourth, we have the batteries. Each of the ports is a 240 volts input. You can use your Delta Pro with your new double voltage hub that has this configuration to export your 120, 240 to the panel and loads. In addition, EcoFlow has a new sheriff in town that will be released in 2024, early in the year, and that is the EcoFlow Delta Pro Ultra. And get this, if you had 3 stacks of Ultras plugged into this panel, which is 100 amp maximum rated, you could effectively run everything on this panel for an entire week. We're talking about 90 kilowatt hours, 90 kilowatt hours of energy storage. That's like a Tesla Model S energy storage capacity to power your home for a week. Starting at the top and moving to the bottom, we have 2 main neutral lugs and 2 main ground lugs. Always love having that extra terminal so you don't have to use adapters. The neutrals and grounds are separated in this panel because it is intended as a sub panel. It's not service entrance rated, so this would not be the first means of disconnect for any operation. You've got the manual ability to transfer from grid to backup. You can also perform that function from the app. Main 100 amp breaker max, again, printed on the panel. Right here, 50 amp max generator input. Breakers, I love the fact that this panel is GE, Siemens, Square D home line, not QO, as is often the case, and Eaton compatible on breakers. So for many or most homes in America, you'll be able to pull the breakers out of the panel, transfer them here, and they'll be a perfect and compatible fit. That ability to use easily available market product is a game changer. Say you have a failure in Wyoming on a Saturday. That's a holiday, right? None of that, none of that. It's all right here, it's all accessible, and it's all off the shelf. That's beautiful. There are numerous, in fact, plenty and sufficient neutral and ground terminations. This is going to be very user-friendly, no frustration involved. Here are the terminations into your battery input compartment. You can remove terminals 1, 2, 3, 4, and the COM, and easily relocate the panel with standard building materials. Nothing special required. With everything in this panel being clearly stamped and color-coded, it's extremely DIY accessible. Again, check your local codes and standards to see if this requires a licensed electrician to perform the installation. One of the things I was personally curious about was this little switch up top. I didn't know if this was a lighted panel or what was taking place. That is a power kill switch, in addition to the emergency stop down below. If the internal dead front is removed, this switch actuates a power off of the battery inputs to avoid dangerous backfeeding voltage and current for personnel safety. That's pretty inventive and, again, very accessible. One aspect of installation, because this is outdoor rated, is there are no knockouts or drill outs. It's a nice, clean look on the exterior, which means that you'll need to use a standard step bit, hole saw, or knockout to penetrate the panel. You'll notice that up top here, we've got some plumbing, electrical panels, and anything that could condensate or drip on the installation should not be shared in the same space. So, because we have a drain line that cannot be easily removed, we'll not be locating our panel here. We're moving it over to this side, and then Scott said he would address relocation of the water lines, since that's a much easier task in PEX. Secondly, we're going to put a cover on that hole to make sure that nobody falls in as they're servicing this equipment. EcoFlow has provided a drill guide. Look at that, to make it easier on the DIY and maybe the professional, but me, I'm just going to pitch that. All right, let's get to work. On a smart panel in particular, but any panel at all, it's best to use some kind of catch or deflector shield to keep all of the metal shavings, when you're drilling it out of the interior to avoid dirt, debris, a short, damage to the components. So I'm going to place my cardboard in there. It's a pretty good fit, and that's going to funnel everything out. There is a beveled edge for a beautiful look on the back of this panel, so I'm using a meter offset fitting. That's going to give me the ability to transition clean and smooth from the knockout location on this panel to my desired location on that panel. When drilling metal, I always recommend eye protection, cut resistant gloves, relatively low speed. I use a beater bit to pilot my hole, and then I'll come back with my mandrel and hole saw in order to help that last a little bit longer. For conduit, when you're drilling it, this is a nominal dimension of 1.25 inches. However, you add 3/8 of an inch to your actual drill size. If you're using an electrician's hole saw kit, it'll say 1.25 inches on it, even though it's actually 1 5/8 inches. Drop it down to speed 1, good pressure, stabilize the work so it doesn't kick, and watch out, because if you've never seen a powerful contractor drill get snagged, this thing will flip around and it turns into a weapon. So brace it tightly and consider using the auxiliary handle. EcoFlow has such a nice, clean, black powder coat finish. If you're not careful in removing that material from the surface and just kind of brush it off with your hand, you'll scar the surface, because each one of those shards come out hot and extremely sharp. So just take care so you enjoy the finished product. It's only 58 pounds. I just killed the lights. We have here two standard kinds of electrical boxes. One is a 4 square, which I think some people call a 1900, and the other is a 4 11/16. So you can tell it's just a little bit bigger. But when it comes down to capacity, cubic inches, there's an advantage here. So I'm gonna make up my big junction in here. It's got larger wire nuts, and my smaller junctions in here. I've got one additional box if I need it. The code does have what's called box fill. Effectively, it's a calculation as to how many conductors and of what size you can fit in any type of electrical junction box. And that is relative to heat mostly, but there's also an aspect of working space. Let me bring you up to speed. We're making progress. We have our junction boxes up top. Our heating cooling system terminations are complete at the J box. Here we have 4 20 amp 120 volt and one 15 amp 240 volt circuit that'll be coming down into the top of the cabinet. All these holes are field drilled. And this 50 amp 240, yes, we are putting this to the test. All the penetrations are made in the field. There are no drill zones in the back and sides of this cabinet. They're readily evident when you look inside where the housing is, and they're identified in the instruction manual. So you've got total clarity on that. When you're terminating your NM cable, I recommend a pair of Klein NM strippers like this. You simply take the relevant size, pinch it down, it makes a clean cut, and then you can pull that outer jacket straight off, and you end up with a nice finish. Remove the little cardboard insert, wax paper, gone. You got a straight edge. Make sure that's 1/4 inch inside your cabinet as required by code. And then when you're tightening down your connectors, here's a pro tip. Don't overdo it. You want them not to be movable by hand, but if you really crank them or use a power tool, you risk clamping and shorting the internal conductors to each other. So just take it easy there. I'm leaving all the conductors long enough, generally speaking, that's to the bottom of the cabinet, so I can lace them in and lay them nicely like everyone likes to see in a brand new panel like this. Now, there's a ton of features, smarts and intelligence to this new EcoFlow smart panel. But in terms of wiring, it's just like any basic dumb panel. If you've done one, you've done them all. There's nothing complicated, so don't be intimidated. One of the beautiful things about Smart Panel 2 is that the circuits enter Smart Panel 2 and stay here. That's where they live. A lot of generator transfer panels, critical loads panels, and the Smart Panel 1, the circuits actually are originated here, come over into the control or the guts, and then come back here, and there's a whole bunch of wires to manage. Not so in this case. Main feeder, 100 amp, which you'll see in a bit, comes in here, powers the panel, circuits land here. That's it. The transfer of circuits from this panel to that panel is really the only step, then you have a final clean scenario. Progress report. First of all, once you have the panel mounted, there are only 3 tools required to complete the interior. A 5.5 millimeter straight head, also called 3/16 or 1/4 inch would do. A number 2 square drive. If you attempt a Phillips, like a lot of DIYers would, you'll end up frustrated. Number 2 square drive. And a 1/4 inch Allen. That's it. 3 tools. If you've never terminated a breaker before, there are a couple things to tell you. One, they rock in from outside. It kind of grabs to inside. Should be a firm press fit, but nothing difficult. They often come in the tripped position. Occasionally people are confused. They're like, it won't turn on. You always have to go off and then back on. Thirdly, this is where the number 2 square drive comes in. A lot of breaker configurations are square. When you're terminating your panel, you want to have that beautiful consistency. This is a 2-wire breaker. Just a tiny little pro tip. Terminate all your wires on either the top or the bottom position, and that will give you further consistency that you're looking for. Just a snug fit. No death grip on your breakers. Over torquing is as detrimental as under torquing any electrical connection. We are so close to landing this plane. We've got our new 100 amp feeder breaker through our 1.25" PVC conduit to the new EcoFlow Smart Panel 2. That terminates on the upper left. It's marked as grid power. Upper right is generator. That's up to 50 amp. We're using a 30 amp. We've got a 10 gauge wire running outside through liquid tight to protect that NM cable, and the gen inlet is right there. So yes, we can use a gas generator with the new tech. I know so many people get frustrated when it's either one or the other. It's both. I've got my Klein meter out. We'll be doing some final checks and testing on this panel and comparing it to the readings on the EcoFlow app. There is a neutral bar down here. It's not labeled, but what I did was just took my continuity tester, verify, hold to neutral, tap to bar, and there it's connected. There's no easy way to combine neutrals and grounds. Neutrals and grounds are isolated in this panel by its design, straight from the manufacturer, and that's because it's a sub panel, right? That's always the case downstream of the main disconnect, which is here. A couple things to draw your attention to. This panel is surface mount and flush mount capable. It's a 14.5 exact width, so it'll fit between 16 on center studs. That's a huge plus. In a simple installation like this, where we're not fighting drywall, finished surfaces, any awkward framing, it's about an 8-hour installation. Now that's not just for the panel. We set our disconnect, pulled it through, made one run to the hardware store, PV cables, the solar array was existing, but everything else, the panel, the gen inlet, some unboxing, a review of the manual, which is extremely straightforward and easy to read, and commissioning, it's about 8 hours start to finish. So not a bad challenge for a single day. The best product to pair with the Smart Panel 2 is the Delta Pro Ultra. Not only does it have massive storage capacity, but it has tremendous functionality. The low voltage solar input, the high voltage solar input, and all the features that you could want. It's a beautiful beast. Both of these products are released at CES January 9th, 2024. At that time, we'll have final pricing, the cost of installation for the major components, plus the materials you're going to purchase from your local hardware store, probably $10,000 to $11,000. If you're paying for labor, you can anticipate one electrician for an entire day and possibly a premium if they choose to charge such because of the unfamiliar technology. It's new on the market. So my guess is you're in it for $10,000 to $15,000, start to finish. Also, be mindful of your local codes. Energy storage of this size, even though it's portable, might start to flirt with the restrictions for some jurisdictions. Now, let's fire this up and see what it can do. This unit right here is almost 200 pounds, so I'm thankful it comes on a cart, and if you're going downstairs, get a friend to help you. However, it is modular, so you don't have the full weight yourself. We're going to be plugging it in and trying it out. All three of these ports may be utilized singularly or simultaneously. Here it goes. Now we're not diving deep on the Ultra. If you guys want that, check the description for a link to Everyday Solar. Scott has done a fantastic video on all of the features. Now we're using MC4 connectors to connect to the integrated MC4 connectors on the unit itself. This is the high voltage side that's capable of 4 kilowatts and 400 volts. That's some serious capacity. Now we're going to flip on the disconnect, the breakers, and put this to the test to see what it can do. There it goes. The EcoFlow has 2 more features we've got to show you. We've mentioned it, the mechanical interlock. Main breaker for this panel goes to the off position, the interlock drops down, and the generator breaker is now allowed to engage in the on position. That's fantastic. Secondly, this cover is reversible simply by swapping the hinge kit. Make sure wherever you locate your panel that it can open at least 90 degrees. That's code, preferably almost 180. It's doing it. It's hauling 2,600. And I would say it's purring, but it's not. It's not even making a sound at all.
No, it's silent.
No cooling fans. Usually you can expect about a refrigerator kind of noise.
Nothing.
Quick note. You've got this thing on wheels, and it's not a permanent installation. It's portable, right? In many jurisdictions, however, photovoltaic conductors inside a structure must be enclosed in metallic, either flexible or rigid, conduit. That's what we're talking about. At this point, I'm super excited. We are there. I'm going to turn it over to Scott, who's going to demonstrate some inflow, outflow, functionality, and describe a couple of use cases that are super fascinating.
So the setup on this property, I have 6 360-watt Helion panels mounted on this detached garage roof. This detached garage is actually off-grid. I'm powering that with 2 Delta Pros and the dual voltage hub and just doing a bunch of different projects on everyday solar. Now I do have 1.5-inch PVC conduit sunk 24 inches in the ground and running over to this side of the property where it goes into the house. So I have the 1.5 inch coming out to an LB where I could pull the solar wires through and then going into the basement. That location is right at the Smart Panel 2. And then I bring those PV wires down into MC4 connectors, and that goes into the high voltage side of the Delta Pro Ultra.
If you're interested in advancing your skills and abilities with EcoFlow and other applications like this, check out our Electric Pro Academy for Masters community. The link is below in the description. We meet on a weekly basis and advance our businesses, our skills, and our friendships. And subscribe to Electric Pro Academy for real skills to make real money.